Hi, and welcome to episode 68 of Meeples on Meeples. I'm Brian.
I'm Adam.
Andrew.
And before we get started, we'd like you, of course, to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. We've got Twitter and, of course, our own website, meeplesonmeeples.com.
This week's game of the week is Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients. It's actually one of two different games from Flying Frog Productions. I believe the other one's Shadows of Brimstone, Swamps of Death. Essentially, they're two full games that you can combine together, play together, but we're just specifically reviewing the City of the Ancients version here. It's a very complex game, so we're going to try to keep the rules as simple as we can here. As you can see from all the components, they're not even unbagged here of all the chits that you can have. So it gets to be very complex, very involved. So we're going to try to just give you a very brief overview here. This is a game where you pick a character when you first start playing, and it's a persistent character. You level them up over multiple missions. So you start out with one character and you kind of build them going forward.
Kind of like the most recent Star Wars Imperial Assault and some of Fantasy Flight's games.
So just to give you a basic idea of what happens, you pick your character. Each set comes with 4. You pick one. They have their own character sheet, obviously. They have a man or a woman version, usually, of each character. Has all of their starting attributes on that, as well as the starting gear that character gets. So you pick your character. You pick the starting gear that's listed on the card. You pick one, I believe it's personal item, and one upgrade for that character. And those are the cards you start with, and you'll keep those things going forward unless you lose them in a mission or anything like that. That's your character to start with. Once you pick your character, you can kind of get into the game. I believe each pack comes with, or each game comes with 12 missions. There's 6 basic missions in the City of Ancients, and then 6 City of Ancient missions, actually, in this version. So you start, typically the beginner one is the basic mission 1 and go from there. The map we have laid out here isn't necessarily the map you're going to play with. The map is dependent on the mission that you play. So you might start at the mine entrance, you might start somewhere else in the mine, but you build the map as you go. So typically this would be the only piece you would have. You put your characters at the start of the mine, and you begin the mission. Now on your turn, you have basically only a couple of things you can do. You can move, and then you can search. The movement is based on rolling 1 die. You roll it, you move that number of spaces. The search is either when you're in a room or on a tile, you can search that room or scavenge it once, is what they call it. You draw a scavenge card, look at that scavenge card, and it'll tell you either you get certain experience points, certain gold, or you might get to draw a gear card.
Or usually something bad happens.
Sometimes,
almost always something bad happens.
But to scavenge, you roll 3 dice. If you roll at least 1 6, you get a scavenge card. If you roll 2 or 3 6s, you get 2 or 3 scavenge cards, and then you move on. But each tile can only be scavenged once. Your other search option is if you reach the edge of a map tile, you can peek through a door, and that's basically drawing the next map tile off the map tile deck over here.
The card will tell you what tile to grab. You grab the correct tile, and it tells you which way it should face, so you know how to connect it. And that way, it kind of builds a map in a way that will make sense.
Exactly. And your turn goes in that order. It's move and then search. The only time it changes is, of course, if you have enemies on the map. If there's enemies on the map, you can move up to an enemy and then attack it, but you can't do any searching if there's enemies in the room. Or if there's enemies right next to you, you can't move, otherwise you have to try to break away from them, and there are certain rules for that.
Penalties, yeah.
Penalties, so all you can do is attack. But it's always in that order. It's either move and search, move and attack, or if you're right next to an enemy, only attacking. And that's the basic rules for how you play this game. It's much more complex than that. There's plenty of videos out there that can give you full walkthroughs on how to play it. But that's the basic setup in order to get things going. I guess one thing to keep in mind is the order you go in as a character is based on your initiative. So some have an initiative of 6, some have an initiative of 3. The higher initiative goes first. The only way that gets a little more complex later in the game is the enemies also have initiative. So they might, one of the players might go with a 6 initiative, and then there might be an enemy with a 5 initiative. That enemy will actually go next before the rest of the heroes will go.
And you play out the mission to either you lose the mission or until you beat it. But the one twist that this game does add that a lot don't is there is kind of an after game.
There is
mini game.
Every time you play a mission, whether you lose or win, something happens to you and you move on to the next mission. But at the end of every mission, you get to go back to the town. There's a separate map for the town, And there's different things in the town, different stores, different places you can visit where you can spend your gold, spend your experience.
Get killed.
Get
attacked. Let a horse loose to trash the village. I won't say any names. Andrew.
Or you can use some of the items you've gathered to build new weapons, build new armor, things like that.
And that's when you get to level up, have curses removed from you that you received in the game, because it is an Old West versus Cthulhu theme.
Right.
So there's a lot of, like the dark underworld stuff going on.
And your characters do build over time, so the numbers will change accordingly depending on the mission, things like that.
We found if you're going to play with the same group of people going forward and keep a character, you can actually get these printouts from Board Game Geek or other websites where you can fill in your stats with a pencil and then be able to erase and redo your character as you go forward.
It's very role-playing game-like,
Exactly.
where you're going to constantly be erasing, adding the equipment, losing equipment, getting curses. I can't remember what they're called officially off the top of my head.
It's mutations.
And you can get mutations if you get too many, and
corruptions.
Too many corruptions, and so you'll be writing and changing a lot of things, which is kind of a neat effect, actually.
Right.
Let's talk about the components. Lots of miniatures. I mean, we only have a small handful. There's only 4 heroes, granted, but there are tons of monsters. Lots of miniatures.
Just look at these. These
chits and bags and chits and holy cow.
And these aren't just separate. There's like 4 different types of chits in some of these bags. You spread this out along with all the cards. It takes up a lot of room, but it's really high quality, I think.
I'm a sucker for player board. It's nice that they give a male and female option. The downside is there's only one miniature, and it's almost always the male version.
Right, except for the showgirl, the saloon girl.
Saloon girl, yeah.
I guess I didn't even look at it to see if
the stats stay the same.
They are the same.
They are. You just get to pick whether you're the
male or female. If you played a Flying Frog Productions game, the cards are that nice thick plasticky material. The character models are actually very detailed little miniatures.
Actually, I don't think these are quite as glossy and smooth as the Last Night on Earth ones, but they are good quality.
That's the same with the player cards.
But you get twice as many as well.
Yes. Player cards are a little thinner too, but it's just. One I'll put out there is I like the components overall, very high quality.
Interlocking boards, which is awesome.
I do kind of like that they are cards because like last night they warp because they're cardboard, and really. After you play this game for a while, this card almost becomes null and void, no reason to spend a lot on it.
Artwork is really good. I kind of sad that they didn't go with the real people like they have in their past games, like Last Night on Earth.
That could have actually been kind of fun, getting somebody dressed up all in the cowboy gear and everything.
But the art is still really good. Like,
it's fantastic.
I
think more people will prefer this anyway. This is more mainstream, but I kind of like the cheesy photos.
Yeah, it's a little less cheesy for this, I think.
It comes with tons of 6-sided dice.
Tons of dice.
It's just got what's there and there's tons of everything. It has so many player boards and this nice thick cardboard stock.
There's chits that we haven't even come across yet because there's certain missions that we've played that haven't even
4 missions in, and we haven't even touched some of the stuff.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary how much comes in that box, and it's a big box, but
huge box. Now, while we're talking about the component quality, and like I said, great miniatures. They do come in pieces, and so your average board game player probably isn't used to having to break and cut out of sprues and assemble the heroes and all the monsters, and then glue them to the bases,
glue them together like this,
glue them to your hands, glue them to the table.
The Marshal, for instance, has this tiny little rifle that you probably can't even see in there. That actually had to be glued on separately to the character. So it's very interesting.
No going in that this is a miniatures game with a board to go with it, in a way.
We spent one game night putting this game together.
Yeah, we did. It took a long time because there were so many things to punch out and then so many monsters to glue together, and then you have to let it all dry.
Do we have any downside on the components?
That's a downside because what happens is once you take them out of the sprue, you might be wondering why the heck would they do that. Once you take them out of the sprue, they don't fit in the box very well.
No.
Especially this guy's too tall. No matter how you lay him down or whatever, he's too wide and too big.
And we did find some of the characters, their pieces didn't go together quite perfect.
And normally you would file and trim and stuff, and that's what a miniature player would do.
I'm lazy, I haven't done it, it's my game. The spiders, I will say that the legs are very, when you're pulling them off the deal, I broke one.
Yep.
And if you got cloth table like this, they like to catch.
They do snake those little because the way their feet hook.
And they're very breakable. The rest of them are pretty sturdy.
I think we'll all agree for what you get, and it's a lot. It's great components.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For the price point for what you get, it's honestly pretty amazing that it doesn't cost more.
That's true.
Let's talk about strategy. First off, it really depends on the adventure book and which mission you're doing.
And who you're playing. I mean, we could spend an entire video talking strategy on this game. I mean, it's
different characters have different strengths depending on what equipment you have because you're constantly upgrading your equipment from mission to mission. I don't know where to start with strategy on this one.
I really think it just, I mean, to be plain and simple, it's hard to build a strategy until you know what scenario you're playing, who you're playing with,
and which creatures you're fighting,
and what creatures you're
fighting.
Some creatures are, and it really
more
depends.
Powerful that you want to eliminate first.
If you're playing with 2 players versus 4 players, the intensity of how hard the enemies are.
And you might
that's true. It scales to the number of players.
And maybe you disagree with me, but I think it's almost hard to form a strategy on this until you've played through at least 1 or 2 missions. Really build your character up, get to know the people you're playing with, get to know the game, at least kind of how the missions play out.
A simple strategy you can throw out there is keep track of the turn order, because like Adam mentioned earlier, sometimes it'll be like a hero goes, then a monster, and then another monster, and then your next hero. So eliminating monsters that are about to go next. Like if you say, should I kill the spider or should I kill the tentacle? Which one's going to attack next? That one already went this turn, so somebody else can maybe kill that. And so if you keep track of that turn order, it kind of helps you decide which creature should I be going after now.
And the other kind of obvious one is the creatures that do more damage. It may not seem like the spiders do more damage than the guys with the 2 tentacles on their back. So we often found, leave the tentacle guys alone, go after the spiders because they do twice as much damage.
Right, and spiders can reach you quicker, things like that. Yeah. Also, big strategy I would say is the end. When you go back to the town, is to build your character, and you can get better weapons, and you can buy whiskey and bandages and all
dynamite,
things you will need for the next mission to help
play to your character's strength in the town. I mean, for instance, you were the gunslinger. He's the one that can buy the special ammo and everything.
Right.
So when you go back to town, Andrew would be the guy that's going to be going to the blacksmith or the general store, whichever one it was, buying that special ammo and using his money for that kind of stuff.
That's true, but also, I'm contradicting. Play to their weakness. Say my person is always getting hit and doesn't have any hit points, so I need to get the overcoat or the jacket because that gives me armor. And so, you just have to say, here's where I'm weak.
It's keeping track of
I need to build this up.
It's like it's a role-playing game, keeping track of your stats and making sure you build up. If you're weak on your defense, getting more defense. You're weak on your attack, boosting your attack. And that goes to the leveling up, too. And we didn't get into this because, like we said, the rules are very complex. But when you level up, there's actually a level up tree.
Right.
Where there's 4 lanes for each character, and you pick a lane.
It's like a skill tree in video games. If you play that before, you get to pick where you want to, and then once your skill tree, not locked, but if you do the top one of each tree, you're not going to get very far down because you do max out at a certain level.
So you got to... That's, again, playing to your strengths, but I think that's also when you're playing with your group, knowing that, okay, I'm going down this part of the skill tree, let's say the defense part of the skill tree. Somebody else needs to go down the offense.
Or somebody who can heal, like, for instance, she can provide the saloon girl, female companionship and heal people next to her and stuff. So, look, what ability do I have that other people don't have? And I need to make sure I focus on that.
So, basically, your strategy isn't based on just what you're doing. It's what you're doing as a group.
Exactly, yeah. So, and... I mean, other than that, it's highly dependent per mission.
It's fun to discover on your own. We don't want to spoil too much, I don't think. But there's plenty there.
Let's talk likes and dislikes then. One, kind of the obvious we've talked about, love the components on the game.
I like the theme in Old West dungeon crawler. You don't see that very often. The bandito and the saloon girl, and this guy totally looks like Wild Bill Hickok. But it's cool, Old West.
From the video game background, it reminds me of it's an Old West survival horror kind of game.
Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, there you go.
Meets Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice, yeah.
Well, they actually have that version of the game.
Yeah, they have the zombies.
Oh, that's right, the zombies
version
of the add-on, yeah.
But it's a really, a great theme. It's just very unique.
I'll throw out a dislike. The difficulty is insane.
It is.
If you're playing 5 players, because you need both sets to play 5 players. This only comes with 4 heroes. But if you buy both huge boxes and you invest that money, then it says then you should up the difficulty to this when you're doing your haunt rolls. That's a different game, but you know what I mean. When you're seeing how many monsters come out and how powerful they are, and blah blah blah. And if you play at that highest level difficulty, it is insane. We had 29 monsters surround us. The first room we went into, we were just surrounded, swarmed, and there was
almost taken us an hour just to get through that one room.
And we're like, we need to just knock it back down a notch, and that's doable. Technically, it's against the rules, but they have a scalable difficulty. So
we didn't want to play a 6-hour game either.
Yeah, let's put it on normal instead of hard.
Well, that game would have been like 5 minutes actually.
But everything about this, even when you're going to town for the mini game at the end to level up, you have to roll before you get to town. And if you roll, you look at the, it's a 1 to 12 or 2 to 12, 2 to 6, travel
hazards. Yeah.
One of these things is going to happen before you get to town, and half of them are bad, half of them are good. It's just there's always bad stuff happening.
I would say that
you get to town, everybody has to roll to see what bad thing might happen at what store they chose to go to.
You know what?
One of the biggest dislikes, though, is that it seems almost everything comes to chance because you do roll for
a lot of chance.
Everything.
Everything is dice, and I like dice rolling, but when the not only is it luck, but it's like I said, it's just so much bad stuff, and everybody else might know, oh good. I lucked out. I finally got a decent roll. Nothing bad happened at the church where I'm visiting. Nothing bad happened at the blacksmith. And then Andrew rolled something. An idiot let a horse loose, and it somehow trampled the whole building and almost killed me. It's like, really?
I was really trying to kill him.
And then now I can't do my action because my building's destroyed because of something he did.
I think part of what you're talking about is a like I have about this game, and it's the fact that you can play the game, you can lose a mission, you can get screwed in town, whatever you want it to be. But the game doesn't end there. You still build your character off of that. Even if you lose a mission, you move on. Something bad might happen to you, but you still keep building that character up.
It's not a total loss.
It's not like you invested 3 hours and then you're done. And the 3 hours, advance your character, and then get on to the next mission. And
the flip side of what I'm saying, it does tell a story. It's a ridiculous story. And I was so mad. But it tells a story of, like, we went to village, we totally burned the place down before the first night. I guess we won't be staying in the hotel. Let's get out before they kill us. Right. So we had some laughs, and it is very RPG-like, but it's really frustrating because of so much chance, like Andrew said.
Right. Well,
and the difficulty is just
simple things like even movement. Why can't you just have a set movement? My guy moves.
That is there's 2 options. I believe there is an option to have a set movement or roll.
Yeah. And we've played with the kind of the standard rolls. You roll to see where you move,
which sometimes fun, but still sometimes you're like 1 space. Great.
But if you do roll, that's when you get one of those tokens.
You do get a grit token,
which
you can use to re-roll dice, which is nice too,
or for other special attributes. I mean, I agree with you on the fact that there's a lot of chance. I think as you level your character up, though, you get to control a lot of that too. You get to add more dice. You get to control it with the type of items you have.
More dice from certain weapons.
Again, it's building up your character to initially, and I still think that you're right. There is a lot of chance to the game, but I think you can, as we play it more, you can kind of control that.
That's true.
Anything else, likes and dislikes?
I think we pretty much got her.
All right.
And now our final review. Our scale goes from 1, absolutely terrible. 5 is it's average, nothing broken, nothing great. 10 is amazing. Who wants to kick off?
Go for it.
Me? Okay. I think I'm going to be the low one here. I'm going to give it a 7. And that's still a respectable score. I love minis. I love dice. I love the Old West theme. But it's just that the chance and that difficulty is... It's always, like I said, it just seems like it's always bad stuff. I know that if you look at the list of things that could happen, there's as many good as bad, but it doesn't work out that way. I don't know if the dice are weighted. Yeah, the dice gods hate us. But it's just, it's so hard to get ahead in this game, and some of the missions are super difficult. But having said that, a great storytelling game. It's really fun if you're trying to get your RPG crowd into board games because you're still doing a campaign. You can do a weekly campaign and get together. So it has a lot going for it. Just know that you might want to scale the difficulty a little bit. And just know that you're getting into a lot of minis and assembly and a lot of work before the game's ready to play. Yeah. And I think that's going to throw a lot of board game players off, personally. I play miniatures games, not a big deal to me. But I know that Andrew opened the box and they're like, we're going to play No, we're not going to play tonight. Look at all this crap. So but it's a solid 7. It is an enjoyable game.
I can go a little higher. I would give this an 8. I like I've already said, even though it is tough, I like the fact that your time invested isn't wasted. You put that 3 hours into a game, which it's easily 3 hours.
It's a long game every time you play, yeah.
But you continue that story. You keep building your character. I mean, I think they encourage you to name your character. I mean, you
no really appropriate names in this group. we can't tell you the names of our characters, but
I'm Bobby.
Bobby, that's fair.
Okay,
but I really like that aspect of it. I get really frustrated when you play like a 2 to 3 hour game and then it's just like, oh, okay, we lost. Oh, that was 3 hours of my life gone. This, at least you, no matter how it ends up, you still get to move on. Great components. Love the co-op aspect of it, of course, working together. It's just a really good game. I can't think of too much that I don't like about it. Maybe the chance part of it a little bit, but solid 8 for me. I just really, really enjoy it.
All right. Well, since this is my game, I'm not going to be biased, but
you're not going to pull it, Brian.
No. This isn't going to be a 11 out of anyway. No, I'm going to give it a solid 8. There's a few things that I don't like, but I will say, if you're having your friends help you put the minis together, don't let one of them glue all the guys to the paper plate and get glue happy, because I'm pretty sure 3 of us used 1 tube of glue and he used 1 tube of glue on his.
Let's just say this reviewer is not here tonight. That's all we're gonna say.
You got 2 options.
This guy's feet are literally melted to the base.
Right. So don't get too glue happy. The components are nice. They could have been a little bit better, but really at the price point, if they would have made them a whole lot better, it would have easily jumped another $40 in price. So for what you get, the price point, awesome. The gameplay is a lot of fun. One of the big downfalls is we did play with 5 players once, and it gets a lot of downtime. One person can compound on this and this and this and this card and this card and this card. After a while, you're almost about to carry on a conversation, but you do have to pay attention so you know what's going on.
I think 3 to 4 is a good number for this.
I think 4-player max is really where I would like to set it.
And I'm sorry to interrupt your review, but that problem is compounded by the fact that it's not just hero, enemies go, hero. No, it's hero, couple enemies, hero, couple enemies. So if you're that first hero to go, and then you've got all these individual turns interrupting each other, who goes next? And,
there could be almost 10
and
turns
interrupters. It's a lot of downtime, and you could take a nap.
Right, yeah. But huge bonus, you can build your character. You don't have to just pull this sheet out and use them to, whatever they've got here. You get to use these stones. I think they're called dark stones.
Yep.
And you can fuse them to weapons to make them more powerful. And it just gets extremely elaborate, and that's why we didn't put it in the rules too, because we could have done a half an hour on rules and still not even touched the game. So... But yeah, it's a solid 8 for me. It's not something I would want to play every week. We did play it like 3 weeks in a row, and I probably don't want to touch it for a month or so, just on principle. So
that's our review of Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients. Check back next week for our next video.